Ready? Let's go.
PaRappa!
Let me ask you a question. Which type of rhythm games do you like best? Maybe you grew up on games like Guitar Hero and Rock Band as a kid. Or maybe you're more attached to indie rhythm games that have built strong communities like Friday Night Funkin' or Osu. And hell, some of you are probably super old school and prefer games like DDR because you like physically dancing to the songs. But whatever your answer may be, I'm here to tell you there's nothing wrong with any of those choices. They're all great games, and I think it really does come down to personal preference when you're considering which one is best. But to me, there is one type of rhythm game that stands head and shoulders above the rest. The mascot rhythm games. I'm talking about Guitaru Man, Rhythm Heaven, Technic Beat, and all those games. I don't know what these types of rhythm games are referred to as collectively, so I'm calling them mascot rhythm games. But you know what they are. Basically rhythm games where cartoon characters are prominent. They aren't limited to the 5th through 7th generation consoles, but that's when they were in their prime, and that's the best way I can sum them up. Today we're gonna talk about the second best mascot rhythm franchise, PaRappa the Rapper. Space Channel 5 is first, and I'll eventually make a video on those games too. As for PaRappa, these games are too short to deserve their own video, so I'm bunching them all in this one, starting with the original. So what's PaRappa all about, first of all? Well, the story follows a rapping dog named PaRappa who's lovesick over a flower named Sunny, and to gain her affection, he goes on a journey of self-improvement by different musical teachers. It's a tale as old as time. PaRappa the Rapper is credited with pioneering the modern rhythm genre, as it was one of the first music games with a call and response system synced to music. In fact, NanaOn-Sha and Sony, the game's developers and publisher respectively, had trouble trying to figure out how to market the game, as some of them didn't even think PaRappa qualified as a game. The only thing I could find with similar gameplay that predates PaRappa is this extremely obscure music game called Born to Rock, and its sequels Welcome to West Feedback and Quest for Fame. And they came with special guitar picks and encouraged you to rock out on a tennis racket if you didn't have their virtual guitar. These games aren't cool like PaRappa though. The series comes from Masaya Matsuura, a fairly popular game designer who started as a fairly popular musician in the 80s with his two-person band, Size. And just to name some of his work, he composed the soundtrack to Sweet Home, cool movie, and some of his band's music was featured in anime such as City Hunter. In a 2017 retrospective interview with Sony, Matsuura recalls his record label insisting he appear in music videos, which he hated having to do. But the technological advancements in interactive software like CD-ROMs gave him a new medium to express his art without him having to be a part of it, and this would eventually spark his interest in video games. His first video game, called The Seven Colors, featured instruments you could play with, and he actually won a Multimedia Grand Prix award for it in 1993. Later that year, he would create NanaOn-Sha, and in 1994, Matsuura finally decided he wanted to make a proper game that would feature rap music. PaRappa the Rapper was a collaboration between NanaOn-Sha and artist Rodney Greenblatt, an American artist who was working at Sony at the time. Without him, we wouldn't have this 2D pooch as we know him. The team happened to like Rodney's flat art style, and it even inspired the name of the game according to him. Paper Rapper PaRappa, get it? Anyways, after 2 years of development, the world would be introduced to PaRappa the Rapper in December 1996. It was really popular too, selling over 700,000 copies in 1997. It's understandable why PaRappa is so popular too. It's cute and pretty damn simple for a rhythm game, as you would expect cause it's one of the first of its kind, but that doesn't mean it's not a fun game. PaRappa's teacher will rap a line or two at you, and then you have to repeat it back to them as best you can. This is done by tapping the buttons that appear on screen to the same beat that they did. For each line you successfully clear, you get some points and maintain your good rating. But if you fail a line twice, you can lose your score and lower your rating. And if it's bad or awful by the time the level ends, you'll have to do it all over again. I'm not really the biggest fan of how the good, bad, and awful rating system determines whether or not you pass, because you can be doing great for the entire level, but if you fail those last 2 lines of the song and get dropped down to bad, it means you have to do it all over again. And yes, I have fallen victim to that exact scenario multiple times. It would have been nice if you were rewarded for your overall score instead. It's not like a good score is easy to get either. It's a simple game, yeah, but don't be fooled and think this game is a breeze. It actually has pretty strict timing, and if you're even a bit off, the chances are you're gonna be punished for it. It's also gonna toss out some really quick lines at you that you're not gonna expect, so you're not really gonna be good at any of these levels until you replay them a few times and learn the song's patterns. Just a little more foresight for the player to know when it's their turn would have been nice. This isn't the biggest deal in the world. Again, it's something you can easily get over with a few retries, but I'm only bringing this complaint up because they remedy it in the next couple games. The good news is, this game is very easy to cheese thanks to freestyling. This is done by pressing the buttons in a line any way you'd like as long as you still time the actual inputs. The game gives you way more points for completing lines this way, and it's way more lenient with how it judges your timing if you freestyle. Yeah, it makes the game really easy. If NanaOn-Sha were gonna have to deliver on anything in this game, it would definitely be the music, and I'm glad to say they knocked it out of the park. I think it's one of those games where even if you haven't played it before, you've probably heard its music or lyrics in other places. Instructor Mussolini's rap, Master Onion's kick, punch, it's all in the mind, PaRappa's catchphrase, I gotta believe. They're all elements that contribute to PaRappa being the iconic rhythm game that we know it as. The main songs were all composed by Matsura himself with help from Ryu Watabe, a rapper who converted the lyrics to English and also did all the temporary voice acting for every character in the game. It's not a very long game, lasting only about 20 minutes when you watch the cutscenes from beginning to end, but that's still a crap ton of work. Take my word for it as someone who takes an hour to record 5 minutes worth of voiceover. The surf rock song used in the game's opening was actually composed and performed by Rodney himself. It's part of this movie PaRappa and his friends are watching in a theater. That's where the whole story starts actually. They leave the theater and head into a diner where some guys start macking on Sunny. But PaRappa's rival, Joe Chen, appears and stops them instead. So PaRappa decides to learn karate from a Master Runyon to protect Sunny next time. It's a pretty funny game. I actually find myself getting really caught up in the scenarios every time I play it.
Whoa! Check that out! That's the new Super Stretch Limo 900!
Yeah, the maximum speed is tuned up to 463,200.
There's only 6 levels total, and they're all broken up into different episodes. Each one introduces a problem for PaRappa to overcome, and later shows how it's all resolved. To make up for its short length though, the game encourages replayability. If you notice, there was a 4th rating I didn't mention, and that's the cool rating. You get this by freestyling as well, but when you do, the teacher stops rapping, meaning you have free reign to remix the song any way you'd like. And for a little bonus, if you manage to get a cool rating in each level by freestyling, you'll unlock a funny little mode where Sunny and Katy Cat, a friend to Sunny and PaRappa, dance in the club. You can change the view and their outfits and get a real close look at the background characters. It's really not much, but it's something. PaRappa 1 is on the lighter side with secrets, but unless I say otherwise, assume each of these games I'm gonna talk about has unlockables that you get after completing the game. And speaking of completing games, we're done talking about PaRappa the Rapper, the most influential rhythm game since Simon.
Jammer Lammy.
The next game we're gonna look at is a spin-off to PaRappa. Another great rhythm game by NanaOn-Sha, but another one that's not without its own quirks. After seeing how popular PaRappa the Rapper was, Sony decided they wanted another game in the series, and Matsuura obliged, but he opted to make the game a spin-off, wanting to focus on rock instead. Enter Jammer Lammy, 1999. This time, the story follows Lammy the sheep as she tries to make it to a venue on time for her band Milk Can's performance. The other members of Milk Can are Katy Cat the cat and this little mouse named Masan. The game plays exactly like PaRappa. You still gotta time your button presses to the music and you can freestyle and everything, but it has a few minor improvements to both gameplay and presentation that go a very long way. The most notable being the updated HUD. The lines scroll now, which lets you know if any really quick prompts come up, and you'll better know when it's your turn to go because your lines are highlighted a different color from the teachers. Because of these two little changes, I didn't have to retry these stages as much as I did in PaRappa. I got through that game because you can break it. I got through Jammer Lammy because you can break it, and it's actually fair. Most of the time. The BS rating system is still here. Again, you can be doing great and maintain your good rating for an entire level, but because you failed those last few lines of a song and got dropped down to a bad rating, you'll have to start all over again. It's really annoying when this happens too. It happened to me over and over on a few stages in particular. The first level, which was a really easy tutorial level until the last few lines for some reason, and the sixth level where in the story, Lammy makes it to the concert in time to perform, but it turns out she went to the wrong venue and has to play guitar for an idol named Teriyaki Yoko. It's a really weird level and honestly my least favorite in the entire series, and I'm not just saying that because I hold a personal grudge against it for dropping my rating at the end of it a million times. The song's not great, and I think the entire premise was changed for the worse in the American release. In the Japanese and European versions of the game, Lammy runs to the concert but slips on a banana peel and dies and goes to hell. In the American release, her belt gets stuck on a door and it launches her to an island. In both cases, she's mistaken for Rami, Goth Lammy, and she's forced to play in a concert for Yoko. I say it's a change for the worse because if you perform terribly, lightning strikes Lammy, and if you fail, the crowd parts and a giant Yoko appears to tell you you suck. Without the context that she was originally in hell instead of just some island, these things just seem to happen randomly, and this was obviously changed in localization to maintain the game's E for everyone rating, but I say they should have stuck by their guns and canonically killed Lammy in all versions of the game. The rest of the stages were cool though. I'm not so crazy about the music this time around, but this game has more charm than the original PaRappa. I like how each option in the menu is just a different candy bar, and the individual loading screens created for each level. I also like how Lammy doesn't have her guitar for a majority of the game, so she pretends whatever she's holding at the time is her guitar. Even this baby. The story here is still fun. I didn't really find it as engaging, but it keeps your attention. Here's some good news for you completionists though. After you complete the game, you unlock a bonus mode where you can play through the entire story as PaRappa with original cutscenes. Well, not the entire story. You can't play through the first level with Master Onion for some reason, even though it's in the game's files. When you play as PaRappa, the song arrangements changed too, which usually made the stages easier in my opinion. There's also a co-op and versus mode with PaRappa and Rami. It switches back and forth between first and second player, and if you're playing with PaRappa, the songs change to his version when it's his turn. Play it with a friend if you can, it's really fun.
Wiener!
I'm the wiener, I got the wiener.
Oh no.
What the fuck?
Did you know there was also a rare arcade version of Jammer Lammy called Jammer Lammy Now? Players could play through the game as Lammy or PaRappa, or play the versus mode against each other using these special guitar controllers. It also featured original cutscenes, the first level with Master Onion for PaRappa, difficulty levels, and some other little additions. In promotion of the arcade game's release, NanaOn-Sha uploaded a music video of All We Need Is Music from PaRappa's very own Ice Cream album to their website. More on that later.
Let's take a walk down down memory lane. I break it down so you remember my name. It's the P-A-R-A, double P-A, the R-A-P-P-E-R, reaching for the stars.
The fact that I have both this music video and this gameplay footage to show you though is a blessing, as they were both recently discovered lost media. After seeing the success of rhythm games like Beat Mania and Dance Dance Revolution, Namco decided to throw their hat in the world of rhythm gaming and developed 4 different guitar games at the same time in 1999. They made Guitar Jam, the arcade port of Quest for Fame, Million Hits, and they partnered with Sony to make Jammer Lammy Now. Unfortunately though, Jammer Lammy Now wasn't the success Namco expected it to be, and it was removed from arcades just 2 years after it came out. It was largely forgotten by everyone except for a few dedicated fans who were determined to track one of these machines down. And guess what? They succeeded. According to the Lost Media Wiki, the search for this game dates all the way back to 2003, but the game's contents were only dumped online in 2023. Thanks to the efforts of Eric Yaki, the Jammer Lammy Now search effort Discord, and British celebrity Jonathan Ross. The short of it is, it was discovered Jonathan Ross just so happened to own one of these rare cabinets, so Eric got in contact with him and he managed to post the game's contents on the Internet Archive. I'm gonna link to a more in-depth video made by Eric himself in the description and in the cards of this one. It's a fun watch and I really suggest you check it out. Also, it's fully playable too if you'd like to give it a chance yourself. I still prefer the home release of Jammer Lammy, but this arcade machine is such a cool concept. I'd love to try playing the actual cabinet sometime. More PaRappa Lost Media can be found on Rodney's YouTube channel. Here's what an early design of Lammy looked like, and here's a rare McDonald's commercial with PaRappa and some other PlayStation characters. Oh, and here's a weird Japanese commercial for PaRappa too. Speaking of which, next up is PaRappa the Rapper 2 Oodles of Noodles, released in 2001 for the PlayStation 2. At this point, NanaOn-Sha had way more experience under their belt, and they were able to deliver their most polished work yet. But I wouldn't be quick to say it's their best. I believe one of NanaOn-Sha's goals with this game was to make the series more accessible to the common man who might not have any rhythm. That's why they've loosened up on button timings and added a tutorial before each stage in the game. And honestly, it's a little too easy. I'm not gonna front like I'm some master of rhythm games, cause I'm definitely not. But what does it tell you when I was able to beat this game 4 times in a row, only having to retry a couple of stages twice? The game gets progressively more difficult each time you beat it too. That's what the different colored hats represent. These games just aren't as fun when they're a breeze to get through. You barely have to try to win this game. Just look at my timings and missed inputs on some of these lines. They're all off, but the game doesn't care. I'm pretty sure it's because it thinks I'm freestyling. But here's some good news. They've regressed from using scrolling lines like in Jammer Lammy to go back to the static ones. But the teacher and PaRappa have separate lines now instead of sharing one like they did in the first game. Also, they cut off short if you have to be quick about something, so this works just as well as the highlighted lines. That's where my praise for the gameplay stops though, because the rating system returns, and I'm still not fond of it here. In fact, they made it even worse. They added this terrible mechanic where when your rating changes, the teacher will pause the song and say you're getting worse or you're getting better, and it can take you right out of your rhythm. That's one of the worst things you could do in a rhythm game. It's not like when a player pauses and unpauses a game themselves and it counts you back in. No, it just goes straight to the teacher and straight back to the song. This wasn't a thing in the previous games, and I'm not really sure why they felt the need to add it. But then again, it's not like you're gonna be dropping your rating a lot anyways, because this game is so easy. This game actually does have a hidden difficulty slider where if you hold down on R3 while you're selecting levels, it does make the songs faster and lines more challenging. And wouldn't you know it, this is way more fun. It's still more forgiving than the older games, which is a good thing, but you have to be on your game. It actually tests your skills now. The bad news is, you gotta beat the game 4 times to unlock this, and I can't really say this game has a lot of replay value after just one run. I mean, after you beat the game 4 times, you also unlock a jukebox where you can listen to the songs from each level you got a core rating in, but that's really it. The game doesn't offer anything else for completionists. Multiplayer is here, but that's also been nerfed. Versus mode returns, but not co-op, and in Versus you don't even play the entire song, only a few repeated lines. It's not as fun as playing through an entire stage with your friend. But at least this game has a fun story. It starts with PaRappa winning a lifetime supply of noodles, but they're all he seems to be able to eat lately. So he and his friend PJ unravel a conspiracy of all the food in their town turning into noodles. This game has fun stage scenarios too. There's one where PaRappa and PJ get sent to boot camp, there's one where PaRappa gives Lammy a haircut, and of course we can't forget Big, contender for best stage in the entire PaRappa series. The story goes, PaRappa, PJ, and a bunch of other characters have been shrunken down to the size of insects, but a helpful ant named Guru Ant teaches PaRappa the ways of being big. It's a level with a fun premise and clever lyrics to back it up. This stage also has my favorite song in the entire series. With the exception of this one song used in this gauntlet level where PaRappa battles all the teachers inside of this video game, I actually think PaRappa 2 has the strongest soundtrack in the series. This is the soundtrack I find myself coming back to most. Alongside the PaRappa 2 video game, Sony released the PaRappa the Rapper 2 original soundtrack on CD. It has every song in the game plus an original song written by De La Soul. The PaRappa series even released a couple original albums that weren't directly connected to the games. That Ice Cream album I mentioned earlier was one of them, and Milk Can had an album of their own called Make It Sweet. PaRappa actually speaks out about gun violence on that Ice Cream album multiple times. I'm proud of him, but it feels a little weird coming from a cartoon series.
Only thing I shoot is hoops and basketball. I'm asking you all, if we're the future, why you wanna shoot us? It seems kinda ludicrous, why you doing this?
If it's not clear already, I'm not the biggest fan of PaRappa 2, but regardless of what I think of this game, it's clear Sony used to put a lot of money into this franchise back in the day. And unfortunately, it's been a pretty stagnant series since the release of this game. It's not a completely dead franchise, as the first game was recently remastered for the PS4 in 2017. And in 2021, the brand collaborated with Wind & Sea for its own clothing line. But PaRappa hasn't been in a new video game since PlayStation All-Stars back in 2012. I say this little guy is long overdue for a comeback. There is one other PaRappa property I have yet to talk about, and that's the PaRappa anime. It's a fun prequel to the PaRappa games that features new characters and a fantastic theme song. It's what you're hearing right now. The anime even has a sequel of its own focusing on PJ. I'm not gonna talk about these series in full in this video, but I do plan on revisiting them in the future. They're interesting watches. And so, that's where we close on PaRappa, but we still aren't done yet. The last game we're gonna take a look at is Vib-Ribbon, yet another iconic PlayStation rhythm game from NanaOn-Sha. It's also too short to deserve its own video, but I love this game and it's from the same developers, so I'm shoehorning it into this video here. It all started when Mercedes-Benz approached Sony and asked them to build a promotional video game for their newly manufactured A-Class cars. Sony agreed and gave the project to NanaOn-Sha, who built the prototype for a game. Sticking with what they knew, they decided to make it a rhythm game where the car would ride down a track. But what made the game unique was the players would be able to add their own music to the game, and the levels would all be generated by the audio waveform. Unfortunately, the project was canned when Mercedes-Benz found out their A-Class cars didn't pass the ELK test, a safety test that determines how well a car is able to swerve around cones. But not wanting to give up on this idea, NanaOn-Sha rebranded the game and created Vib-Ribbon. The most notable thing about this game, besides its ability to play custom music, is the way it looks. Everything in this game is composed of squiggly line segments, from the game world and text to the player character Vibri. The fact that you can play custom music is even why the game looks so simple. The Mercedes-Benz game was actually pretty colorful and vivid according to Matsuura in this one surviving image we have of it, but he reasoned that a blank black and white world worked better because it didn't set a specific world to the music that could have been anything. The other reason why this game isn't graphically intensive is because it had to be a very small game. In order to play your own songs, which was the main draw of this game, you'd have to insert your own disc, but if you ejected the Vib-Ribbon disc, you wouldn't be able to play this game. So what was their solution? It was to run the game on the PlayStation's measly 2MB memory pool after you load it once. Yeah, Vib-Ribbon is a very, very small game, even for the time. But I'll get into the custom music in a second. How does this game actually play? Now, just like PaRappa, Vib-Ribbon is a very simple rhythm game. There's 4 base obstacles and 4 buttons you need to use to get around them. L1 for blocks, R1 for loops, down for these pits, and X for these little spiky waves. The game adds a bit of challenge by combining some of these obstacles. So for let's say a spiky loop, you'll need to hit R1 and X at the same time, but it's nothing you can't handle. The game will also change perspective from time to time and flip obstacles around, and that can throw your game off a little. If you pass enough obstacles, you'll eventually turn into Super Vibri. It doesn't really change the game, but you have a crown and cape now, and that's nice. The more obstacles you hit though, the more the world starts to lose its structure, and if you take enough damage, Vibri devolves into a smaller animal. She has 4 different forms total, and each one has a unique set of animations. I tell you though, Vib-Ribbon is not a game that offers much on its own. It only has 6 songs total that are provided by the Japanese band Laugh in Peace. Don't expect much from this game if you're not gonna provide your own music. Speaking of which, the custom music feature is really fun. All you gotta do is put in a CD with your songs on it. You can choose to play to one song on a disc or all of them, and if you want to, you can go auto mode and watch Vibri complete a song by herself. There's also speed mode, where the more you clear obstacles, the faster they start coming towards you. And I'd say the level generation works to varying degrees of quality. The obstacles rarely sync up to the music, but it knows if the song you're playing is upbeat or not. Play some metal or some super fast classical and it's gonna be hell. But you know what I found works pretty well is Sonic music. That's it for Vib-Ribbon though. Unfortunately, there's not much else to it, but I will say I am impressed by how much personality they were able to put into a game with so little going on. There's nothing cuter than watching the intro every time you load up the game, or hearing Vibri sing your score to you each time you finish a level. There was a charm to these games that I really do love and miss. Vib-Ribbon was a moderately successful game. It didn't have the same prestige as PaRappa, but it did receive praise from fans and critics alike. And you gotta remember that these games were being made for a niche audience at the time. It was still successful enough to spawn a spin-off, a sequel, and a spiritual successor from NanaOn-Sha, but unfortunately they never lived up to the original. If you ask me, the real success of Vib-Ribbon and NanaOn-Sha in general is their legacy. They might not have been the first company to put out a rhythm game, but they're definitely the most influential and innovative. It's understandable why their games have such cult followings. Even if you don't know their history, their games still stand on their own as works of art. From what I can tell, NanaOn-Sha hasn't been up to much in recent years. In 2017, Matsuura partnered with Keiichi Yano, the creator of Gitaru Man, to launch a Kickstarter for a new game titled Project Rap Rabbit, but it never came to fruition as the campaign pledged only a fifth of its goal. But here's to hoping this video becomes dated one day and NanaOn-Sha is able to reclaim the glory they once had. Here's to also hoping mascot rhythm games can make a comeback. I know they're still out there, but they don't command the same attention they used to from both the industry and fans. But until then, We gotta believe. Hey everyone, it's Cosmo. I hope you enjoyed this video. I know I said Yakuza 3 would be next, but I put my foot in my mouth all the time. Truth is, it won't be my next either, but it's coming. Anyways, thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all next time.